It is just a little bit after 7 on March 29th, 2023. This meeting was suggested to this 3-member board by counsel for the board, Johanna Schneider, who thought that we should take an opportunity to sort of recap where we've been procedurally and where we stand today, and sort of lay that out for members of the public. And so I will do that. And let me start at the beginning. So after quite a bit of public hearings, quite a number of public hearings, and a lot of public input with respect to the 40B development proposed for 648 to 652 Canton Avenue, the board reached the decision on May 2nd, 2022. And this came after literally 23 public hearing sessions and 7 deliberation sessions. The decision included extensive conditions which addressed many of the points and issues that had been raised during the public hearing process. And we ultimately issued a decision, as I said, on May 2nd of 2022. The applicant appealed our decision to the Housing Appeals Committee, which is the state agency within the Department of Communities and Development, which deals with 40B projects and applications. And that appeal was filed by the applicant on May 20th of 2022. The principal argument in the appeal, since we had approved the appeal, but subject to very specific conditions, the appeal really related to several of the conditions that we had imposed. The Housing Appeals Committee has an internal requirement or process of mediation with respect to 40B applications, appeals that are filed with it. And we were required in this instance, the board was required to attend and participate in a mediation session sponsored by the Housing Appeals Committee. I was the designated person who attended the mediation session, which quite literally lasted all day long. And we were represented at that mediation session by Johanna Schneider. The mediator is a lawyer, a Boston lawyer named Art Krieger, who has a long history of experience with 40B projects and in land use matters generally. And we went through a long process with the counsel for the applicants and with the mediator, and ultimately came to at least a tentative agreement or arrangement that would change several of the conditions that we imposed. Obviously, we had approved the project, and the mediation really focused on certain categories of conditions, greater specificity, some modification, in a few instances, elimination of conditions. Obviously, that process, with one member of the board attending, it makes quite clear that that member can't bind the entire board. So I could only tentatively reach agreement for myself with the applicants and with the assistance of the mediator. But it was clearly understood that we would have to come back to the board and to have the board consider the terms of the amendment that had been addressed and discussed in the course of the mediation. We did that. We held a public hearing. Actually, it was a public meeting that we held, and the 3 members of the board went through the process, and that ultimately was culminated in a decision of the board that was acceptable to the applicant, and that's where it stood at that point. Now, the case is still at the Housing Appeals Committee, and I'm not really sure I understand why there's been such a delay in finalizing the matter at the Housing Appeals Committee, but it is still there. And apparently it was, at least according to Johanna Schneider, our counsel, it was suggested that we have this meeting tonight to sort of publicly recount the history of the process and how we got to where we are today. So we have an amended decision waiting approval by the Housing Appeals Committee, and that's where it stands. Now, it should be understood, as I'm sure most of all of us know, that this latest decision, once it's issued by the Housing Appeals Committee, will itself be the subject of appeal, so that any person withstanding in the town of Milton, any person or group withstanding, has the opportunity under General Laws Chapter 30A to file an appeal of that decision in the Superior Court. And I don't know one way or the other whether that's going to happen, but that is certainly open to individuals or groups who are unhappy with the decision as amended through the process. But as I said, I have not had any information one way or another whether or not that will occur. So that's where we stand. We went through the process. We went through the difficult deliberation aspect. We reached the decision. We went through the mediation process in good faith at the Housing Appeals Committee. I think we made some reasonable changes to what we had required by way of conditions. We have now finally approved the decision, and once the Housing Appeals Committee issues its final decision, it will then be subject to appeal, and that's where it stands today. And that was the point that was to be delivered tonight, was to give a brief history, to give a brief status of how we and how we got to the point we are at this evening, and also to remind folks that if they want, without suggesting one way or the other, that there is an appellate process for people who are unhappy with the decision that we finally and ultimately issued. So that's really all I had to say. I'm happy to entertain any questions from my fellow board members, or feel free to make whatever commentary you would like. But those were sort of the points I felt that we needed to make this evening. Tim, Ted, Mike, anyone have any comments?
I don't have any comments.
I don't have any comments.
Okay, well, I want to just say that I want to thank Mike, you and Ted and Tim, and the people at the town hall who have assisted us through this process. It's been a long and difficult process. I think we worked hard at achieving the best decision that we could achieve under the circumstances, knowing how the law sort of stacks up against us. We'll see how this goes, but if there's no appeal, I assume that they'll begin to move forward with their preliminary things that they need to do before they pull building permits. And if it's appealed, well, that may slow things down. But it's been an interesting process, and again, I thank you all, and to members of the public, we've appreciated all of your input during the process. I mean, I think we took it all to heart, and we applied it and modified the plans when we could to try and accommodate the concerns that were raised, and that's where we are today. So thank you very much. I'm sorry for the follow-up at the beginning here. I am not particularly suited at technology. And I thought I had it all set up, but thankfully my son-in-law Mike knows a lot more about it than I do, and we were able to save the day. So thank you all.
Brian.
Yes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Should we also say, as part of the procedure, because I don't remember it was mentioned, that a group of neighbors also filed an appeal in the form of an action in the can't remember whether it was the Superior Court or the Land Court. I'm
pretty sure that it was in the Superior Court.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that because that's part of what happened too from after the decision.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That you can appeal to the Superior Court from the original decision. And now there's a separate appeal that you can file from a decision of the Housing Appeals Committee. So they will probably have two appeals going, and perhaps they'll be consolidated or whatever. That's beyond our ken and jurisdiction at this point. So I'll be happy to watch that unfold.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for putting this meeting together tonight. Julia, nice to meet you. I guess
Nice to meet you.
hopefully if I ever do this again, won't start off on a bad foot like I did this evening, but thanks for your help and good night to all.